Well, Razorback fans, we knew that the Razorbacks had to get into the transfer portal and be able to add some big old boys. And I'd say they definitely did the job with some of the new additions. So let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday. You finally made it, well, at least almost, to the weekend, depending on when you're listening to today's podcast, but should be what I believe is a pretty fun weekend. We'll talk some college football playoffs since that's actually a thing that happens tonight, as well as getting to some of the latest of maybe what the next portal moves will be made by the Razorbacks. But earlier yesterday, there was a nice little bump, a nice little great positive news vibe that hit the Razorback fandom when they were able to add a couple of key positions and key pieces from the transfer portal. Two of them being offensive linemen, and two of them being very much needed offensive linemen. The first one that we'll talk about, of course, is Corey Robinson. He is the offensive tackle that is coming from Georgia Tech. Now, with Corey Robinson, I discussed him a little bit on the podcast yesterday, that if you're going to overpay, if you're going to go all in on one particular player or one particular position group, it was going to need to be offensive line, because regardless of the skill position guys you have around the offense or whoever, it's important. But none of it matters if you don't have good offensive linemen being able to protect Taylen Green, as well as be able to provide open lanes and open holes for people to run through. None of it's going to matter. They had to be able to go into the portal and get some really nice offensive linemen. And I would say they did the trick. At least Corey Robinson is one of the best offensive tackles in the transfer portal. He's the number 9 tackle in the transfer portal. And he was, according to 24/7 Sports, and he is joining Jaquan McCrory, who is the number 12 tackle in the transfer portal. So it's nice to be able to have guys that you can at least count on, at least guys that have some experience, and especially one particular, Corey Robinson. He chose Razorbacks over Oklahoma. And the thing is that he actually had a visit scheduled for Oklahoma, and it never transpired. He ended up canceling the visit. Now, we'll talk about some of the quotes that he had and some of the things they said about Arkansas, but I wanted to at least give a shout out and at least give a little bit of a high five to what Sam Pittman and the staff did. You know, it's been very negative recently, and rightfully so, and justifiably so. However, I think they did not only a great thing in getting these guys, but in the way that they were able to get Corey Robinson, where they didn't even allow him to go and take the visit over to Oklahoma. Now, when I say that, I'm not telling you that they physically did not allow him to, but they just made sure that they gave him all that he needed to where he didn't have to go and take the visit to Oklahoma. He didn't have to look elsewhere. He didn't have to go any other place. Arkansas was the spot, and he didn't want to go anywhere else. According to 24/7 Sports, he says, quote, it was a really solid visit, but just explaining how they could help me become the best version of myself on the field. From a football perspective, it's big for me. He also said learning different techniques, seeing different techniques and tells and showings. We were talking to Coach Pittman, and what he was saying and what he sees in my game that he can improve, that really caught my attention. So he's going to be technically a redshirt junior, or I guess a redshirt senior this year. So it's going to be his final year. He's only going to have 1 year of eligibility. Started his career over at Kansas in 2021, moved over to Georgia Tech, and was basically a perennial starter and has been a starter for 3 straight years. He was a starter as a redshirt freshman in 2022, 2023, and also in 2024. So again, you get somebody with legitimate experience in a legitimate conference, and he's able to help you out right away at a very important position, which is, as we know, the tackle spot, which is going to be fascinating because we know that Fernando Carmona, one of the players that, of course, remained on the Razorback roster, he's at that left tackle position. But would Arkansas consider moving him to guard, or would they maybe move Corey Robinson over to guard, or they work on both sides on the tackle side of things? We'll have to wait and see. Sam Pittman and Eric Mateos have always been big on the cross training and just putting the best 5 offensive linemen you have out there and trying to find the best spot for them. So I don't really know what that is going to look like, because you also got to think into consideration Jaquan McCrory. He hadn't played much. I mean, he's going to be a second-year player, but I don't think you can really move a guy over to guard like Jaquan McCrory, who's like 6'8", 350 pounds. I don't know if you could do that. Maybe you can. But Corey Robinson is 6'5", 300 pounds. About a good tackle spot. So either way, it's a huge get for Arkansas out of the transfer portal. And they followed up that news pretty quickly after the fact, where they were able to add a center, because they know, as everyone knows, they lost Addison Nichols into the transfer portal. He ended up signing with SMU, which kudos to him and congratulations. In fact, there's a few players that Arkansas has lost to playoff teams or borderline playoff teams. But still, they needed a center, and they went and got Caden Kitler. I got to make sure I say that right, because if you put a wrong H in there, it could come off really bad. But yeah, he's played center there at UCF. He's 6'3", 295 pounds. He's a redshirt freshman who is originally from Dallas, and he was actually choosing the Razorbacks over Gus Malzahn and the Florida State Seminoles, which UCF played for Gus Malzahn at Florida State, and there were some other places that he was checking out and everything. But a nice get for the Razorbacks, which, by the way, on that part of it, how huge is that? To where a lot of these players, not all of them, but a lot of these players like familiarity, if they liked what Gus Malzahn was doing, and, maybe there were some other reasons why he left and went to be Florida State's OC. It is what it is. But for him to be still interested, or at least still be fascinated by playing for the guy he's been playing for last season, he has that opportunity, and to do it at Florida State, in the same state that he's been playing, but instead says no to them and says yes to Arkansas and Sam Pittman. I think that's a huge statement by not only the recruitment process of what Sam Pittman was able to do, but also in what they did for Eric Mateos and getting this kid to convince him, hey, I know you may like your coach Gus Malzahn, you can be there in Florida State, all that stuff, but come to the SEC, come play for the Arkansas Razorbacks, and you'll be a starter right away. He said in his official visit that, again, according to 24/7 Sports, he says it's like a good mix of city and country, so I really like that. It's true. He says, I like how it's quiet, but it can also get loud at times. It certainly can that. And there's nothing else in Arkansas other than the Hogs, so that fan base and the games are always going to be loud, and that's pretty cool to me. He says they run a lot of pin and pull stuff. They actually highlight the center's athletic ability, so I think that I would be really good in that role, because at UCF, we ran a lot of inside zone, just highlighting what I can do and just kind of cutting loose on it is a draw. So, again, you got another big-time commitment from another big-time player out of the portal, and it was at a big-time position, which, of course, is the offensive line. We talked about the tackle position and what they end up doing there. We'll see, but I don't think it's any secret. This guy's going to be your center. Kitler's going to be your center. That's why he's there, and that's what he's going to be at the end of the day. So you're going to see the offensive line starting to come together and piece by piece. And another thing, too, that I liked what both of them mentioned when it came to their visits is they were talking specifically about what Sam Pittman, what Arkansas, what Mateos, whoever, but what exactly about the style of offensive line play that they have that appealed to them. That, to me, is a telling sign that they at least understand and feel comfortable that what was presented to them by Sam Pittman and Mateos and whoever was something that at least made them feel comfortable. Oh, I know what that offense is. I know what type of offense that is. I know how I can be better at it. And you're putting me in a position to where I can succeed at that particular thing. That's big. That's really big. And so you're starting to see the offensive line take shape. I think that you're going to have, of course, we got to mention about Carmona. He's going to be a starter on the offensive line no matter what. We know that Kitler's going to start. We definitely know that Robinson's going to start. So you got 3 bona fide, solid offensive linemen going to be on the team next year. Amarian Harris, is he going to be a guy that's currently on the roster where he could slide in that other starting position? Is McCrory going to find a way to leak out on there and become a starter in that position? Maybe so. What happens with the other offensive linemen that Arkansas has? Do they feel good about their development? We'll see. But here's my whole thing on this. I like to take of what we know, or at least what we for sure can guarantee, and what you have right now, where it stands. Forget all the other stuff. Forget about predictions or what you think could happen or whatever. Where it stands right now is you have 3 bona fide starting offensive linemen that are good enough and high quality enough to play Power 4 football. You have that right now. Carmona proved it. You got another guy with Robinson, and you got another guy with Kitler. You know those for a fact. McCrory could be that player. Marion Harris could take that next step. And I hope they do, and they may. But you got to feel at least a little bit better knowing that you got 3 bona fide guys on the offensive line. And you know who else has got to feel great about that? Taylen Green. We talked about him a lot yesterday and how it's got to really hit him in the right way of, oh, geez, what am I going to look like next year? Well, he was pretty excited about it. He was excited about the opportunities and the possibilities that could end up happening for him. And so, yeah, it goes back to this. You can be negative. You could be like, what does this matter? Who cares? Blah, 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 whatever. That's fine if you want to take that approach. But I'm going to call out wins or wins. And this is a win. Yesterday was a win from the transfer portal for Arkansas. It really was. But they got to keep building. They are far away from getting to where they need to be. And that's my point. You can still say that they had a good day in adding some good pieces, but still be able to say that they have a lot of work to do. So we'll see how it all plays out. But there is one particular player that has entered into the transfer portal that could be a really fascinating get. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans, did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your life spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using the app's premium features. Anytime that you are dealing with a lot of different subscription services to different channels, to different services, whatever it is, sometimes you can just forget about it. And you don't even realize it unless you really pay attention in those certain months when your card gets charged. And even sometimes you're like, oh man, I got to cancel that. But then you just let it go in the back of the mind and you just forget about it. We don't have to worry about that with the Rocket Money app. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Of course, we're also brought to you by the Game Time app. We know that all of us are always looking forward to going to sporting events, concerts, theater shows, all of that around this time of year, especially dealing with the family. And for Arkansas football fans, if some of you are making that trip to the Liberty Bowl, God help you. But if you are, you're going to need a ticket. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, or maybe you're going to have a last-minute deal to where you decide at the last minute to go, then you better make sure you do it on the Game Time app. They make it easier to save on all of these different events. And you also get a chance to use the feature where you can toggle your seat, your total up front. You know, there's a lot of these apps that where you go through the tickets and you're like, oh, you know, it's a great deal. And then you click it and then boom, you got double the price because it's all these hidden fees and whatnot. You can do the all-in pricing feature by toggling it with the Game Time app. You can also see a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. So you know exactly where your seat's going to be at and what it's going to look like. And they have the lowest price guarantee where if you find your ticket lower than what Game Time's offering it for, they will credit you 110% of the difference. It's that simple. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So I mentioned a player that would be really interesting to get out of the portal for Arkansas, because at this point in time, any player that you get, there's going to be some interest. There's going to be some players that you're like, oh, well, you know, this may work out. But very few times or very few opportunities do you have a player that is familiar, one that you wish you would have had, or maybe you felt like you could have had, but you missed out on him. Very seldom those opportunities happen, but it looks like Arkansas has that opportunity at this point in time with Courtney Crutchfield. Now, a lot of you would be like, hey, that name sounds familiar. And you'd be right, because he's from Pine Bluff. He was a bona fide 4-star player at the wide receiver position coming out of Pine Bluff. He had originally committed to Arkansas during the high school cycle, but then flipped his commitment and signed with Missouri. But it got reported that he is expected to enter into the transfer portal. And it was a pretty, not a big blow, but a pretty frustrating blow last year when you lost out to Courtney Crutchfield going to Missouri, because you already lost to Missouri, and then you throw that into the mix, and it's just really frustrating. But he's 6'0", 188 pounds. He redshirted this season. He has 4 years of eligibility remaining, and he was the number 43 overall prospect in the class of 2024, the number 10 wide receiver overall, and the number 2 overall recruit in the state of Arkansas, behind Walker White, who ironically also entered into the transfer portal. So you got him into the mix. He didn't play much at all, if at all, this past season. And there are some speculation as well as some predictions that he is going to end up playing for the Razorbacks. Now, I'm going to be very clear about this, because a lot of you have your own feelings on something that could happen like this. If players say no to you from the get-go, from the jump, if there's in-state kids that decide they don't want to go to Arkansas, they want to go somewhere else, you don't like it, and you don't have to like it. You don't have to like them. You don't have to, as long as things are done the right way, you just got to say, all right, whatever, moving on. Totally understand that. But when there's an opportunity to be able to bring said player back into the fold at your favorite school, or in this particular case, Arkansas, I'm sorry, folks, you do it. You swallow your pride. You don't let such things bother you because, the guy committed to you, but then he decommitted and went to your school that's considered your rival, and you didn't like that, and you just are never going to let it down. You're never going to give that up. Well, you better get over it. If you have a beef with it, grill it up and eat it. Because this is about more than just your pride. I don't know if Arkansas is going to get him for sure. I mean, it looks like all intents and purposes it's going to happen that way. But if Courtney Crutchfield decides to come to Arkansas, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be happy. And I'm going to hope for the best for him. Because again, it does not matter what he did or who he chose or anything like that. What matters is, can he help you right now? Can he be a player that goes out there and helps you right now? I want the best players that you can get. I don't care what happened. I don't care how it's said. I don't care what happened previously. I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, if you want to really look at it, say Jaquan McCrory, the kid that you just got out of the portal from Oregon, he said no to you too. Because you were trying to recruit him out of high school, and he said no to you, and he went to Oregon. So what? You're not going to take him because he said no to you? It's a cop-out answer. And also, this is another big factor into it, folks. Selman Bridges, I think we talked about him. He was a defensive back for Arkansas. He was a 4-star player last year that went into the transfer portal. It's kind of frustrating. It's not like he played a whole lot, but you felt good about maybe his future. Well, guess what he did? He got out of the transfer portal. He withdrew his name. And he's back with Arkansas. Now, for those of you who saw that, did any of you go, we don't want you back? You said no to us. We want you gone. We don't want you back here. If you can't make up your mind, or if you're doubting anything, then just leave. Maybe some of you did say that. Maybe some of you are crazy like that. But not me. I want the best players out there, regardless of their status, regardless of what they did. And if the coaching staff, if Sam Pittman or whoever's involved, they feel strongly enough about it, they're like, yeah, we'd like to have you back, then dadgummit, get them back on campus. Get them into the fold. Can Courtney Crutchfield be a number 1 wide receiver and be the best guy out there and replace Ranger Armstrong year 1? Probably not. But if Petrino wants him, if Arkansas wants him, and he's available, then do it. Just do it. And hope for the best. And hopefully he goes out there and hopefully he dominates. There's nothing wrong with that. All of us have to understand that. You have to understand that. You are in such a dire situation, you can't afford to play tiddlywinks. You can't do that. You gotta Just go and get the guys. Go and get the dudes. And hopefully this is one of those dudes that's really going to help you out. Let's hope so, at least. We'll talk a little college football playoff because that starts tonight. How exciting. But we'll get to that in just a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans, know you all are big on the apparel game. Of course you are. You love your apparel. You love wearing your Razorback gear. But there's something extra special about finding those things of apparel that really personify the good times. The vintage stuff, you know what I'm saying? The slobbering hog, or the hog running through the A, or the hog leaning on the A. You know, all those really cool logos that everybody loves so much because it helps them think about greater and better times. Well, with HomeField Apparel, you'll be able to get all those different apparel options, and you'll get them delivered straight to your door. They have t-shirts, they have jackets, they have everything that you could possibly imagine when it comes to the Razorbacks, and really unique trends too. And the shirts are extremely comfortable. They're ones that not only do you love wearing out, but you can wear in. You could wear to sleep in if you wanted to. They're all over the place. They're great. One of my favorite shirts is the one with the slobbering hog on it. Wear it all the time. So comfortable, so convenient, so amazing. And you can have the same thing. So if you just go to homefieldapparel.com, it's homefieldapparel.com. You can enter in that promo code PIG24, PIG24. You can check out all the different items that the Razorback store has to offer for you there at HomeField Apparel. And you can check it out there as well. So no matter what it is, get that vintage stuff, get that good stuff over at HomeField Apparel. It's homefieldapparel.com, promo code PIG24. We're also, of course, brought to you by the College Football Playoff, which starts tonight. It's that time of year, so the College Football Playoff is back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever. Bring you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the College Football Playoff begins December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff Kickoff Show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, which of course is SMU battling out against the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern, so don't miss a single moment of action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. What a big weekend for college football it's going to be. We finally get the College Football Playoff, right? The College Football Playoff, the 12-team playoff, the thing that we've been looking forward to the most and could not wait to see how this is all going to play out. It's finally here. And also some SEC bowl games of note, too. So tonight, Florida and Tulane actually face off against each other in the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. Sweet. So for those of you crazy people, it's not even tonight. Sorry, it's at 2:30 in the afternoon. So we'll get a little early action there with Florida and Tulane. Should be a lot of fun. At least I'm probably going to enjoy it. So you have that. And then tonight, you got the very first playoff game. It's going to be on ABC and ESPN. It is number 7 Notre Dame versus number 10 Indiana. A little in-state action happening there in the very first round of the college football playoff. According to FanDuel, Notre Dame is favored by 7 points in this game. Should be great. So you got some good action happening tonight in the start of the playoff. And then tomorrow, how awesome is it going to be where you have 11 a.m. on TNT, as we just talked about, SMU and Penn State, bright and early. Well, maybe not early, maybe not bright, but you see what I'm saying, 11 a.m. That game's going to be played up there in Happy Valley at Beaver Stadium. 8.5 points, according to FanDuel, is what Penn State's favored by. You also have later in the afternoon at 3 o'clock, Clemson in Texas. Texas is favored by 12 in this game. I might be taking Clemson. I don't think Texas is that good. I'm not saying Clemson is, but the situation there with Texas has been weird. I still don't think that they've been, I don't know. They haven't really impressed me much. I mean, their best win on the year is Texas A&M. It's like, okay. That's about it. You know, you lost to Georgia twice, and you barely beat Arkansas, to be honest. So still, you have to wait and see how that plays out. But I'm rooting for Clemson, as weird as it is, because, I mean, everybody hates Texas. And then the fascinating one, Tennessee and Ohio State, the 9 seed versus the 8 seed. That's happening in Columbus. 7.5 point favorites Ohio State is in this game. Fellas, girls, I don't think so. I think Tennessee might win this. I actually am rooting for Tennessee. I don't like Tennessee, but I hate Ohio State. And anything to make Ohio State lose, I am all for. So give me the Vols in this one. I actually like a lot of the underdogs. I'm not going to lie. I like Tennessee. I like Clemson. I kind of like SMU, to be honest. Notre Dame and Indiana, I'm not too sure about. I might go with Notre Dame in that, but it's not like an easy get, but still, I'm just hoping for great games. Home field college football playoff games. What could be more exciting? What could be more fun than that? It's going to be awesome. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel next Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you then.